Okay, and we are officially live on effect. The Polka Dot Rabbit podcast. Another episode of another great individual, another very interesting individual. Um, known this cat for a hot minute. You know what I'm saying? And if you saw my book, you saw that well, not him specifically, but you talked about how I was motivated to start playing music, and seeing his band back in the day was reasons why. But before I go into that, go ahead. Let me go ahead and do this real quick. Please, if you haven't already, go to yourbrozo.com and check out my book, Bicultural Living and Leaving the World of Illusions. You know what I mean? Oh, here you go over here too. Living, Leaving the World of Illusions. You know what I'm saying? This book talks about me growing up and just becoming aware and conscious of my being in this third dimension slash matrix. Okay? You can go to yourbrozo.com. If you're watching this, please on YouTube, subscribe, press the subscribe button. You can see me on IG, Twitter. Just go to yourbrozo.com. You'll see all that good stuff there. Please support and follow. And you do see the Cash App for donations. Always looking at that to take to the next level. And we do appreciate everybody that's been donating. Now, enough for me. We're going to get to the important person, the man of the hour. Go ahead, Mike. I'm going to put you on. You go ahead and let you introduce yourself, and just tell the people what you want to.
Sure. My name is Michael Adams. I write under my full name, Michael Anthony Adams Jr. That's a relatively new development. I used to write under a pen name, but I decided it was time to claim all of me with my writing, and I've written as Zoe mentioned. I played in hardcore bands back when I was a kid in high school and stuff like that in my teenage years, and went off to college and started writing books. And I've written two novels, 5 collections of short stories, 7 collections of poetry, and a memoir, which is my most recent book called Disorder, an avant-garde memoir of psychosis, healing, and love is kind of the subtitle of that. Yeah, man, I'm just thrilled to be here. Looking forward to see where this conversation goes and see what happens, man. I think that's about it for me right now, just to introduce myself at least.
All right, cool. Yeah. See, I'm gonna tell y'all, if you haven't, like I said, you haven't got the book, check it out, because I go kind of into detail about a certain specific time.
Hey, you're muted on.
Gotcha. Thank you. If you haven't got the book, I go into detail about a specific, very important time in my life, and that's when I was right out. Well, I was in college, right out of high school, right in college. First, just starting college, and I just went through a very tough time in high school, just dealing with a lot of different things, just being a high schooler, dealing with race in the very racist area of Virginia where we grew up in. And at the time I just had a lot of bent up aggression and a lot of emotions. And I remember going to the Battle of the Bands. It was at my high school, right? And I just saw this band. You know what I'm saying? It was crazy. They had girls dancing with writing on them, and what I'm saying, it was hardcore, and they were like, dancing. It looked like a daggone party going on. And I see this dude up front screaming and like it really reminded me like Rage Against the Machine, but much more heavier, way more heavier, more hardcore. And I always liked music, but I was always like rock music and stuff, just growing up, just listening to MTV, all that kind of stuff like I talk about. But there was something about hardcore funk music and just being young that just grabbed me. You know what I mean? And after I saw his band, it was called Broken Chains of Segregation. You know,
After I saw that
band,
I was like, yo,
I was like, yo, I got to do this. You know what I'm saying? I talk about it, but I was like, yo, that's what I want to do. So I'm trying to rock out. So that's what I did, and that's the beginning of independent. You know, people didn't know. I literally saw BCS play, and I was like, yo, this is what I'm gonna do.
You know what I
You
mean?
know what I mean?
And
And
that's
that's
part
part
of
of
my
my
life.
life, and I'm gonna let Mike kind of talk about that after me, but like
The
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 scene that we
scene that
grew
we
up
grew
in,
up in,
it
it
was
was
like
like a
for
for
me,
me,
it
it
was
was
like
like
a,
it was like a
how do you
what do you
explain
how
it?
do you explain it?
It was
It
like
was like a
I had
I
a
had a
shield
shield
around it.
around it.
You know what
You
I
know what I
mean?
mean?
Meaning
Meaning
that
that
all the stuff that I
all the
dealt in
stuff
the
that I
past,
dealt
all
in
the
the past,
racism,
all
all
the
that
kind of
stuff,
stuff,
like
like when I came to these hardcore shows and hang out with these kids, and
you know,
it was like
like
95%
95%
white,
white, they
they
all,
all,
pretty much
pretty much all of us,
showed
showed
love and
love and
respect. You
respect.
know what I
You know
mean?
what I
And it was
mean? And
like
it was like a crew.
you
You
know,
know, and
this is
this was in
Richmond,
Richmond in the
you know,
what late,
late
early, early
early
mid
90s.
'90s.
So
So
even
even though
though
I
I dealt
dealt
with
with
a
a
lot
lot
of
of
stuff
stuff
from my
from
high
my
school
high
and just
school and
all
just
this
all
stuff
this stuff
all
all
around,
around,
when
when
I
I
came
came
to
to
the
the
hardcore
hardcore
scene
scene
in
in
Richmond,
Richmond,
Virginia,
Virginia,
I felt
I
at
felt
home.
at home, and that was probably the first time, besides playing sports, I ever felt at home.
You
You
know
know
what
what
I
I
mean?
mean? And it
It was
was a
a
very
very
influential
influential
time
time
in
in
my
my
life
life because
because at the time I could have went way
because
left
of
because
all
of all the
the stuff I
stuff
went
I went
through.
through.
All
All
these
these
people
people
embraced
embraced
me,
me,
you know, and
and
it
it
really
really
started to change my
started to change my
perspective on
perspective
people.
on people.
You know what I'm
You know
saying?
what I'm saying?
But Mike,
But
yeah,
Mike,
man, go
yeah,
ahead and
man, go
talk
ahead and talk
about
about
what that
what
the
the
scene
scene
and
and
everything
everything
meant
meant
to
to
you.
you.
Sure, man. Yeah, I mean that's beautiful to hear, because the when I was, when I sort of found the hardcore scene myself, I mean, I'd gone through like in middle school I was super into metal and wanted to play in bands, but I was a metalhead, and it just there was just a lot of negativity around there. I was drinking a lot, doing a lot of drugs. I mean, this is in middle school, right, man? Like, what the hell's going on there, and 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 I got clean when I was a freshman in high school, and and sorry, man, I just got a text message from somebody saying I should mute when I'm not talking. It just threw my whole train of thought off, man. Um, but um, but uh, but it means a lot to me that you found that scene too. It was a special place for me. I mean, we started the band called Broken Chains of Segregation, which was a variation on a quote from Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream" speech, which meant a lot to me at the time because I was coming out of this environment. Like you said, Richmond, and especially the counties outside of Richmond were very racist, and I spent a lot of time around a lot of racism, and kind of wondering where my place was in that as well, and how I related to it as a white person. And when I got clean, I was just like, that's got to go. I got to leave all that behind me, and this has to be a different world that we're entering, And I remember at the time just believing that this band I was starting could open things up for people and give people who didn't feel like they belonged anywhere, which I didn't feel like I belonged anywhere, that we could find a place to go together, and 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 that's what I found there with my friends and the people I hung out with, and you found that too, and it was a beautiful place, and it was a beautiful time too. I don't think hardcore scenes and punk rock scenes are always that kind, but where we found each other especially on South Side back then, it was a kind place, man, and very accepting, and a really wonderful time in my life. And that band was really important to me. It guided my values for a long time. The things I came to believe playing in that band, and the things I wrote about, and I spent a long time trying to live up to the person I wrote those lyrics about, and eventually never really could. And that was part of what kind of drove me away from the hardcore scene, was I couldn't live up to the person that I wanted to be in my lyrics, and man, that was kind of before this started, you and I were talking some about my lost years. I mean, that's what started the lost years, was realizing I couldn't live up to that person that my lyrics told the world I wanted to be, and I couldn't live up to the person that the lyrics told the world I wanted to be. I couldn't live up to the world that I saw visions of through that scene that we were building there in punk and hardcore. Yeah, it was a powerful time for me, man. That was a powerful time for me. And independent, your band back then was a big part of that too, I mean, you all were another heavy band doing similar type of music that we were doing. And, I love playing shows with you guys. I think the last show I ever played with BCS before I went off to college was with Independent, actually. Some like a loft party or something like that on just right near the Fan or something like that, And yeah, man, that was a special time. It was a special time.
Idealism is a beautiful thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, because that's what all for me. I mean, same way you writing those lyrics,
That's the
same way I was, man. I was writing these lyrics about, what's wrong with this world? You know what I'm saying? What we got going on? Yo, I see what's wrong with it, And it's interesting talking to you because Mike was one of the first, quote unquote, I would say conscious people, or one of the first intellects that I met at that time. And at that time I was reading a whole bunch of different books from spiritual teachers. I just got introduced to Dr. York, what I'm saying, all these different other information, all this different information I got into. And I was smoking a lot of weed, smoking blunts, what I'm saying, getting high, just reading books. And at that time, that's all I was doing. Smoking weed, reading books, and going to band practice, what I'm saying, and, going to school or whatever. That my whole life was about learning. And Mike was actually one of the few cats that I could talk to about certain subjects, and it wasn't like I was, sounding crazy. He was, we could meet each other on a certain level. And I'm gonna get into this now because I talk about this because y'all got to get this book. I put it down there. The book I'm talking about specifically is just y'all got to get this because I just told Mike off camera. I was just like, I didn't know. You know how like in the Bible, Jesus was like 12, 13 years old, and he just goes away, and he comes back like 30-something years old. That's how I saw Mike, meaning that last time I left him, he was in college, and then he was just gone. I ain't heard nothing from him. And then I reconnected some time ago, but then I read his book, and I'm just like, those are the missing years of Mike Adams. So, bro, please go into those missing years, man, because that stuff in that book that I read about the experiences you had was amazing. I'm gonna shut up and you do your thing, bro.
Sure, man. Yeah. Like I said, when I so at the end of high school, I went off to college. It was a debate for me whether I was going to keep playing in bands or whether I was going to go to college. I didn't see the two as being somehow they didn't seem like they could mix together. Like I felt like I needed to either be in school or I needed to play in a band. I didn't see how I could do both. And I went off to college because I wanted to write books. I felt like, and this is actually just false. I was very wrong about this at the time. I thought that playing in bands that like people weren't hearing what I was saying. And I thought I had something really important to say back then. I was on this trip that I had something important to say. And so I wanted to write books. And so I went to college with this idea that I would learn how to write and I would learn how to write books and all this stuff. And, stayed in touch with people some through there, but then I graduated from college and moved up to Boston for a little bit. And then I went down to New York, and then the towers went down when I was in New York. 9/11 happened. And, like I said, I gotten clean the first time when I was like 15 years old, and stayed clean pretty much all the way through college. And started drinking and smoking and doing all sorts of stuff again after college. And, couple that with watching 9/11 and my natural wiring in my brain, and it turned into what doctors, call a psychotic break. And that was my first of 3 of those over the period of 7 years from the ages of 25 to 32. 3 major psychotic breaks. And you know, there were wild experiences, you know, and it took a long time to come to terms with what I experienced, and and um, and express it to other people, you know, because people are what it's all about, right? The whole thing is connection, right? And that was what my writing on Becoming was, this attempt to try to, eventually what it became was, it became this attempt to try to explain to people what I was experiencing and what I was going through and what I was realizing over the course of these breakdowns that I was having. You know, I just saw an article the other day that said I don't know if this is true, but they said something about how like spiritual enlightenment and psychotic breaks are like occurring like the same parts of the brain. I don't know if this was like a neuroscience article or what it was, but you know, I mean, I thought I was on a spiritual trip, you know. I mean, and today I don't know about any. I don't know about much of anything anymore, to be honest. But I really believed I was on a spiritual trip, and I was you know, I mean, man, I don't even know where to begin with those. I mean, that was 7 years of my life where I was in and out of psych wards, on and off the streets, pull things together, get a job, move someplace new, it all falls apart again. And you know, man, I mean, that's what disorder was. That's what the beginning of disorder was really dealing with, is that period of my life. You know, it goes on to talk about me meeting the woman who I'm now married to, and kind of goes into a lot of detail on that relationship as well, with the idea that because the idea there was that like those psychotic breaks weren't the end, you know, that life went on, and I healed from whatever was causing me to wind up in such turmoil. But the thoughts are still there. The thoughts and realizations still exist, you know, and those don't really disappear. You know, once you've experienced it, I used to say a long time ago, that once you've had a psychotic break, you never really come back from it. You know, you're always there in that world. And I don't think I believe that anymore. I'm definitely very much a part of this world along with other people, but I haven't forgotten the things that I realized at those points in time, you know. And I'll tell you what, you know, speaking about Broken Chains of Segregation and you talking about Richmond being a racist place, was that my first psychotic break, man, race became very apparent to me in ways that it never had been, you know. And it kind of blew my mind. Like I grew up playing, you know, even at the time, like I'm like, man, I played in this band Broken Chains of Segregation, like I was supposed to be aware of these things, and suddenly I'm seeing all this stuff in a whole new way, and it's driving me nuts. You know, like it was driving me nuts seeing how this stuff unfolds in our world and on this planet, you know. And you know, shortly before, around the time I started, I met my wife, you know, and I didn't write about this in the book, but I was really convinced for a long time, man, that this planet was hell. That like that, you know, there was a time during those breakdowns where I was like, man, you know, the rapture occurred and we just didn't make it, you know, and we're living in hell thinking that we can make this paradise. And that just doesn't seem true. I don't agree with that anymore either. But I mean, you know, I mean, I was just like, yeah, there's got to be a devil running this show somewhere, you know, like just the way this planet works out. And yeah, man, I mean, I didn't even scratch the surface, honestly, in Disorder, about the reality of those breakdowns. The book that probably
Let me ask you this. First time, because I know in the book you talk about being homeless and stuff. What got you in a position in which you were homeless, and can you kind of remember the mindset you were in there? Was you just like, I don't care about nothing? Now I'm gonna tell you something, man, because I dealt with depression back in the day. I think during my first marriage, in my divorce, you know I was depressed. I didn't know what the hell it was. You know what I'm saying? And not only, you know, later on I found out I had PTSD from all the stuff I experienced back in the day. You know,
Mhm.
and I tell people all the time, I think every daggone melanated person in America has PTSD, just the stuff that we have to deal with every day. You know, people can't even imagine, you know what I mean, the stuff we got to deal every day. Uh, what, yeah, how did you become homeless? And, you know, what went down? How did you get in that set?
Sure, man. So I mean, it depends which time you're talking about, right? Because like I said, I had 3 major psychotic breaks. I went pretty much homeless each time. But the longest period of homelessness I had was about 2.5, 3 months, something like that. And that was during my 3rd breakdown. And that one, I wound up homeless. I was living in New York at the time. I was in grad school in New York, and I went down to visit my mom in Richmond for like summer break because I was in grad school. So it was summer break. I didn't have a place. I didn't have a place to live. My lease ran out. I was like, I'll just go down to Richmond for a couple months and head back up to New York once the school year starts up again. And while I was down in Richmond, I was sitting in meditation one night. You know, because I used to meditate back then. I meditated every morning, every night, like 15 minutes staring at a wall, you know, Zen style meditation. And sitting in meditation one night, and this voice just came to me in meditation and said, Michael, it's time for you to move from the homeowner's life into homelessness. I was thinking about the Buddha at the time, you know, and that's what the Buddha did. And I guess I thought this is where it becomes a breakdown and not a spiritual enlightenment. In my opinion, is that well, I mean, maybe it was though. Maybe it was legit. I don't know. I thought I was the Buddha at that point in time. I thought I was the Buddha to come. You know, I thought I was the Buddha to come, and I thought I needed to be homeless in order to accomplish what I needed to accomplish. That I needed to live off of people's charity and accept alms as the Buddha accepted alms. And so I got my mom to put me in a psych ward, and then I checked out of the psych ward, and then I just walked the streets for 3 months. Good and bad, all sorts of stuff, you know. I mean, you know, I got beaten up a couple of times, and made some wonderful friends that I'm no longer in touch with because they were all homeless as well. People that we took care of each other on the streets. At that when I went out on the streets, I wasn't drinking, wasn't doing drugs again. And I relapsed when I was on the streets, and people didn't like me as much when I was drinking and doing drugs. Because I'll tell you what, man, you know, I mean, I'm a maniac when I'm drunk. And I'm definitely better off without, you know, I got nothing against people drinking. I got nothing against people smoking. I got nothing against anything people want to do in that regard. But it's not good for me. That's for sure, man. People do not like me when I'm there. And yeah, so, but I'll also say that every time I wound up homeless, it was by choice. I never wound up homeless by circumstance. When in New York, the first time I wound up homeless, I thought I was Jesus. I needed to spend 3 nights in the belly of hell to get my soul back, and I thought I was going to do that on the streets of New York City. And in Charlottesville, during my second breakdown, I was never really homeless because somebody was paying for me to live somewhere. I think it was my mom actually, or somebody paid some rent somewhere for me, and I had a home. So, but I didn't stay there. I slept out on the streets.
It's interesting because, you know, dealing with the reality, like you said, looking at it, and you're just like, yo, and you really do see that the illusion unfolding. You know what I mean? And you really see how it really is, and it can make you go crazy, man. It took me a while to and I'm gonna tell you something. Even now today, the more and more I just see how it's an illusion and how fake this reality is. You know, I can deal with it more now, obviously, and it's not like a burden on me or anything, but it's still jaw dropping, you know, and you can see how any individual that's not that mentally strong or have a psychic self-defense, so to speak, you can see how it can drive them mad. You know what I mean? You could see easily how it could put somebody in a way, but it also sounds like that it's a very interesting way that you had a certain type of passage that you almost had to go through to get where you are now. You know what I mean? So, and it seemed like it's kind of self-induced. You know, and that's interesting in itself. You know what I mean? So, what you were talking about different things that you saw, race that changed your mind. Can you give me examples of that?
Regarding race, you say?
Yeah, the things that you
never knew about before in the past that you were exposed to about race.
Sure, man. I mean, I think that what it really was it just, you know, I mean, I was born in the 70s, but I was a child of the 80s and the 90s, right? Like I thought Martin Luther King had happened, Malcolm X had happened, like, I knew about this stuff. This stuff was history, though, as far as I understood. Like when we started a band called Broken Chains of Segregation, like it wasn't a joke that the chains were broken by the time we started the band. In my mind, right? It was broken chains of segregation. It was not like break these chains of segregation. It was like we are living in the free world at this point in time. Was how I thought things were. And after 9/11 in New York, just like watching the city and watching the way the police cracked down on people in that city. That was during Giuliani's era in New York. And just looking at that city, I suddenly realized that, like, no, man, like the chains of segregation are not broken whatsoever. Like there are huge injustices being committed on the basis of race all the time, and especially once I wound up on the streets, it started becoming more apparent to me. I was talking, I was talking with people in ways that I'd never talked with people before, and listening in ways that I'd never listened before, and I'm hearing what people were saying about their experiences in ways that I'd never heard it before, And some of it was also just 9/11 and thinking about the war that was starting as a result of these towers going down, and kind of feeling like I wrote this in my first novel, Crossroads Blues. I wrote the main character says something about and this was kind of what I was thinking at the time. I don't think I said this thing, but the main character says something about how he gets a copy of the New York Post the next day and looks out and there's pictures of Palestinians cheering about the towers going down, right? Turns out, actually, that did happen, but turns out that was actually just not a real picture of Palestinians cheering about the Twin Towers going down. It was just propaganda that the New York Post was printing. Yeah, it was an old picture from something else. I forget what it was from, but it was a different picture. But I believed the propaganda at the time. But I remember at the time thinking to myself that it was no different than when I was in high school and something bad would happen to the popular kid, right? That I was excited because somebody was coming down to my level for a change, in my opinion, right? That they were hurt like I was hurt. And it was thinking about that in that way that piece of propaganda actually had the opposite effect, because I was like, man, if they're excited that I'm hurt the way that they're now hurt because they're suffering this oppression in Israel, then what am I thinking about the way people are oppressed around the world? And then that turned my eyes more to the United States and what happens in this country. And I'd grown up in Richmond. I was very aware of working class white problems and stuff like that. Very aware of that, but I had never looked at the world through such a lens of race before, as I did at that point in time. And once you see it, you can't not see it,
Yeah, I tell people all the time, just traveling and going outside that bubble, it changes things tremendously, And I talked to a friend from Richmond, Mark England. I was talking to him, and he went to Thailand and moved over there and was doing trying to be a martial artist, and and him going over there, it's like that part of the Midlothian that raised him melted away because of all the experiences that that he had over there, that just real life experiences. You know what I mean? And I think it's so important. What you did, it's like you went down to the human level. You went amongst the prostitutes, the hoes. Just like Yeshua, Jesus did. You know what I'm saying? You experienced that life on a level that a lot of people don't even have the balls to, or don't even want to. You know what I'm saying? People talk about, people, oh, my cell phone died. Oh, you know, what I mean? My cell phone died. My coffee's not hot. You know what I mean? All these different things. You know what I'm saying? And these jokers they're not even living life to the full extent. Not even to talk about how disconnected most of these people are from nature. You know what I mean?
disconnected from
from
themselves,
themselves,
nature, and
nature,
all
and
they
all
are
they are
playing a
playing a
role in
role in this
matrix.
matrix.
You
You
know
know
what
what
I
I
mean?
mean? I
I
always
always
felt
thought
that
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 was
was
I
I
still
still
see
see
that
that
today
today
even
even
more so
on a
on a
whole
whole
new
new
level.
level, man.
So,
So,
what
what
inspired
inspired
you
you
to
to
write
write
these
these
books?
books?
I mean, each book has its own inspiration, but I think, I mean, the reality is, somebody just tweeted the other day, like, why do you write? I just saw this tweet the other day, why do you write? And I responded back that, like, it's just how I've always expressed myself. But when my parents got divorced when I was in fifth grade, um, I started writing myself to sleep at night, just writing my feelings out in song lyrics back then. And those song lyrics eventually turned into poetry, which eventually turned into short stories, which eventually turned into novels, which eventually I realized what I was really trying to say was just what was going on with me, and that became the memoir. And but writing is really all about connection for me. It's really about just trying to connect with other people, and it always was. Even when I was writing lyrics for Broken Chains or Conscience or any of the bands I played in back in the day, like I was just trying to connect with people. I wanted I wanted people to feel something that I had felt, and I wanted to feel what they had felt, because that's what other artists had always been able to do to me. Was that when I was a kid, I'd listen to music and I'd be like, man, this person feels what I feel. As I got older, I'd read a book and I'd be like, this person thinks about and feels and thinks about what I feel and think about. And and that's the inspiration for me. It's just connection, man, just human connection. I think some of it's probably, if I hadn't been an only child, I probably wouldn't have ever started writing. But the fact that I was an only child going through a divorce, with my parents going through a divorce, I just didn't know who else to talk to about stuff, and so I just wrote it down. And I was just talking with a friend of mine earlier today and telling me, that now, I just keep writing it down and I just send it out in the world. It's like little boats just going out in the world for people to find and maybe connect with in some way. you know. As I said, there was a time when I was younger where I thought I had to teach people things, but that's way gone. I've got nothing to teach people other than myself, and anybody else can teach me about themselves just as well, and I could learn just as much from them. So yeah, man, that's the inspiration for the writing, is that connection.
I definitely understand that, man. I remember like how bye bye, sir. um but he I remember just reading writing lyrics, and the first time somebody ever mouthed my lyrics live, you know, the first time they ever mouthed it live, I was just like, man, people are actually listening to me. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And that was amazing in itself. You know what I mean? And I just realized that how important that was. McCarty, if you don't get off the but yeah, I just realized how important that was, and how important it was to me, man. Because like I still remember that, and when you put your pain, you know what I'm saying, your pain and all that stuff out to the world, and all that stuff, and people embrace it. There's not much. That's not much a different feeling that you can have. You know what I mean? And that's one of the best feelings you have as an artist, even as a human, just expressing yourself. You know what I mean? Um, that really blew my mind, and it's interesting, man, because now I look back at the listen to lyrics and stuff, and even you remember Mike, the cover that I had for the first independent. You remember what it was?
Mm-hmm.
You, but a lot of people see, even the name itself, independent. I was just like, yo, I'm out here by myself, man. And because if people didn't realize, see this, my first band was it was a dude in L.A., a brother, a black dude in L.A., and the cops with guns drawn on him. You know what I mean? Drawn on him, and they're about to blast his ass. You know what I mean? And I'm gonna tell you, man, that's the feeling that I had every day walking in this, and walking out at that age. You know what I'm saying? All getting harassed by the cops all the time. You know what I'm saying? Teachers. You know what I'm saying? Only thing I guess that saved me back then was the fact that I played sports and stuff because I wasn't. But man, I've heard horror, even worse stories than I had. I got kind of pampered a little bit because I played sports, but some of the people I grew up with, man, oh Lord, I mean, it was treacherous, man. And the stuff I just dealt with was crazy. But we were also talking offline before this, it's just how much this place has actually changed, just dealing with time and just the way we are astrologically, spiritually in this new age. And it's like, I'm up here right now, and the place doesn't even seem the same anymore. You know what I mean? It doesn't. It doesn't even. I see the same places, but there's been a huge shift in mentality when it comes to a lot of things, man. And it's a beautiful thing just to seeing people evolve in diversity. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, man. I mean, things change, and that's heavy stuff. That's heavy stuff you're talking about. The the realities. And that's kind of what I was mentioning. That was one of the things that meant so much to me about your book is looking at the same area from a different perspective as well. Man. and yeah, this thing just keeps going, man. And Richmond changes. You there, Joe?
yeah, man. You already know what the deal is.
I
Yeah,
hear you,
man. No,
man.
it's you already know. But yeah, man, it's an amazing experience. It's an amazing thing just to see how things evolve. You know what I mean? And the way things are going too, because just like I said in the book, and we can kind of talk about this as well. I know that you're married to a mixed race uh, um, female, right? Correct?
Mhm,
She's mixed race,
mhm,
right? I know I met her at the show too.
mhm.
She's very nice young lady. So, you know, it's interesting because I always talk about like because I know a lot of people with mixed relationships and people have different ideas. And I'm gonna tell you something, man. If you are lucky enough to find somebody that you can get along with on this chicks in this third dimension, you know what I'm saying? And you are lucky just to start there. You know what I'm saying? The skin suit, you know what I'm saying? Their avatar, you know what I'm saying? That's the part that that the skin suit and the avatar is the least thing you got to worry about, depending on your mindset is. You know what I'm saying? And just living life, because a lot of people don't even get past that part.
Yeah, man, that's for sure. I mean, I mean, it is interesting, and I know people on all sides have different opinions on mixed race relationships for different reasons, but I never met anybody I connected with like I do with my wife, and I mean, actually in Disorder, I barely even mentioned that she's mixed race, and the reason for that was because I didn't want it to be a part. I didn't want it to be part of the story at that point in time. Like I didn't. That's not what I was
Hmm.
talking about in that book. Like I mean, it definitely adds a dimension to a relationship. Because it's opened my mind even more to things that I'd never considered and thought about, and experiences that I've never had. Um, but it's beautiful and amazing. But it's really just she's the one who's beautiful and amazing. I mean, race has nothing to do with it. And other than that being a part of her experience on this planet and in this country, as you say, in this skin suit, she has a certain experience as a result of her race, as I do as a result of mine, and you do as a result of yours, and but the person inside is what's really there, and that's what you're really looking for with people, is who's inside there, and who are you connecting with? What are you connecting with, and in what ways are you connecting with that person?
two things changed my perspective on race. One was me traveling, and like I told you earlier, going to different places all over the world in which white people that look just like the people back home didn't act anything like them. And it was confusing because I was like, wait a minute, you white, you supposed to be, and they're like, they just didn't have the same mentality of people, in Midlothian and Richmond, that thing. And also, one of my greatest master teachers had a quote that says, "No one wins the race in racism," and I thought about that, you know what I mean? And I didn't, and I thought about it on different levels. I'm just like, yo, that's right. Because like, if we keep on butting our heads on something so trivial, then we're ultimately never going to, go. We can never reach our full potential with such a low vibrational thoughts. And, what I'm saying? Just actions. Just looking at somebody and saying, oh, they're bad just because they look different. I mean, what type of just think of it's like almost like an animal. I don't even know, animals don't even do that. I don't even know, it might be lower than animals, it's just the low level of humans that we have on this planet, man. So I applaud anybody for finding somebody, you know what I mean, like you said, each his own. We all got our personal opinions about things, but I'm gonna say one thing, Mike, I learned that if it don't got to do with me, then it don't matter. You know what I'm saying? I keep my nose in my business. Anything else, if you're happy, man, I love it. You know what I'm saying? And anybody, you know what I'm saying? That's the thing, man. So you said you redid your books in your name. Why did you? What is your first pen name? How did that come about? And what did that mean? And why did you decide to put in your name?
Sure. So the pen name was Israfel Savad. The name came about. It came about when I was kind of in all of those different psychotic states and stuff like that. It was based on. So the name Israfel was Israfel is an angel in Islamic tradition. I took it from the Edgar Allan Poe poem of that. The Edgar Allan Poe poem that is named Israfel, and he talks about how Israfel sings more beautifully than all the other angels in heaven. And then when I did some research into that poem, because I thought Israfel was such a beautiful name, and I thought that poem was really beautiful, and I found out that Israfel holds the trumpet of the revelation to his lips through all eternity, but doesn't blow it. And so one day I was meditating on that, and I thought of the name Savad being the first track on Miles Davis's album Live Evil, and how Miles Davis played the trumpet. And so I was like, man, that's just a cool end times type reference here, this Israfel Savad thing, that I'm like blowing the trumpet of the revelation and like bringing and summoning all this stuff here, and that's kind of that was the inspiration for that. And I went back and forth whether I was gonna be Michael Anthony Adams Jr. or Israfel Savad. And originally I published a couple books under Michael Anthony Adams Jr. Then I took them back and republished them under Israfel Savad. And that was because I thought I was gonna go to law school at some point in time. And the stuff I talk about in my writing, I didn't think was something that I wanted people knowing about, because my writing is very personal. It's not as controversial as I wanted to believe it was at the time, but I thought I needed to hide my identity. And then as time went on, I'll just be honest that it was pointed out to me by some friends over the past year or so that the name can be viewed as offensive by some people, being a white man with an Arabic sounding name. And I didn't know what I thought of that, because that wasn't my intention. But I thought if that's what people were pointing out about it, that maybe that wasn't what I wanted people pointing out first about my writing, and that I wanted them to engage with the writing and talk to me about what I say, and not about the name that I've chosen. And that was, man, I wasn't planning on being honest about that, but that was the honest truth as to why I decided to go under my name. And I'm really happy to do it too, because the other thing that I started thinking about as I started thinking more and more about it, I was like, if I was to publish my stuff today, I wouldn't use a pen name. I don't need a pen name anymore. I don't need to hide who I am anymore. I don't need to hide my identity. I don't need to be this amorphous figure that exists behind things. My friends know I do this. Everybody knows I do this, and I want to be honest and true with my name and who I am. And like I said, I decided to go with Michael Anthony Adams Jr. That was from years ago when I was first graduating from college, and I wanted my writing to be encompassing all of me. So I was going to use my whole name, middle name, suffix, everything, that this is all of me that you are getting in this writing. And that's what I'm trying to do today is capture the whole thing. And some of that was also, the project was also, I was very, my first master's degree was in Asian classics, and Buddhism has the idea of like of codependent origination or codependent arising, that like everything's interconnected is basically the thing, right? Like that's kind of the layman's term in the way everybody says it. But I was really inspired by that, and kind of thinking that if you could capture any one individual in their entirety, then you're capturing the whole world. And so like the goal of my writing is to capture the entirety of one individual, and hopefully people can maybe see the whole world in that one individual. And that's why I've published my writing from my whole life, from lyrics that I wrote for bands when I was in high school and college, to the poems I wrote in college, to everything I wrote through my breakdown, some which is kind of embarrassing to me, and I'm not always thrilled with what I said, but hey man, I said it, and that's a part of what makes me who I am today. And if you get to where I'm at today and you want to see how I got here, that's how you can see how I got here, and you can see more of, hopefully, the good, the bad, and the ugly in the world through my writing is the goal, capture the whole thing. And Isafel Savad was the way to do it for a while, but I eventually realized also that Isafel Savad was really just it was just a portion of my writing. That name didn't capture everything that I'm doing. That kind of like end times apocalyptic way of thinking about things was a way I did think, but I'm not that person anymore. The name doesn't fit me anymore. So I decided to republish everything under my own name.
That makes perfect sense, man. That makes perfect sense, and it is, man. It's a I decided even on my end just to be very personal about my experiences, because I realized that the experience, just like you, the experiences that I had was unique enough to give to other people, that because they probably didn't even think that people go through this that look like me. You know what I mean? Both sides. You know what I'm saying? On all levels. You know what I mean? Dealing just with marriage, females, dealing with race, dealing with self-hate and all these different things, man. And honestly, I feel as though, like you talking about hell earlier, I think that I had experienced hell first and see the debauchery and everything of the wretchedness of this place to really appreciate the beauty through time when I was older and able to appreciate it. Because a lot of the things I dealt back then, I know I have to deal with again. So it's like I went through my rights. You know what I mean? And now it's just time to spread love, man. Spread information and uplift people. That's what this whole podcast is about. Because I love having people like you on here, and I specifically wanted to reach out to you because I knew your story, and in your book, I knew more of your story. You know what I mean? Because as long as we're on this third dimension, this reality, this matrix, we can all relate to living this human experience. You know what I mean? Some of us do more than others. Some of us, look at life differently, so they're, stay in their confines of just staying safe and whatever the case may be. But some of us we experience it as much as we possibly can, And some of us come back and we teach others.
Yeah, man, I like what you said about that beauty thing, man. That I feel the same way. That I feel like that's a lot of what Disorder was trying to talk about, was that I kind of went through this own little personal hell that I went through, and as a result of that, I was able to find something really beautiful. Because the impurities just sort of melt away, and you see the things that make this world pure and beautiful and nice and good. And that's why, like I said earlier, I don't believe we live in hell anymore. Like I believed that at one point in time, but I don't think that's the case at all anymore. Haven't what was wasn't that on Wu-Tang Forever, Heaven and Hell are what you make it, like hell is what you're going through, and heaven is something or other. I forget exactly what they say, but I think that's at the beginning of Wu-Tang Forever, and you know, I mean, that's just true, you know. I mean, I don't know if there is an afterlife. I don't know. There very well may be, for all I know. I don't know the truth about that, but I know that we can that this world has both heaven and hell in it for sure, you know, and we can find them both here, and it depends what we focus on and how we want to live, you know.
Yeah, it's interesting to me because it's obvious and apparent that the architects that set up this world. I'm not talking about the creative universe. I'm talking about man and women. You know what I mean? That just have that were given influence and rule for a specific period of time on this planet. It's obvious if this world is shaped and molded into after their image, then like you were saying earlier, what type of mindset these people have? Like you talking about this world being like run by the devil or whatever hell, whatever the case may be. You know, what type of mindset would build a system like that we're living in? You know, that goes completely against nature. You know what I mean? And that's what that ultimately that's what this world is. I'm not talking about, you know, the nature or the beauty of it. I'm talking about this world. You know what I mean? And the mindset that crafted this world. And looking at that, yeah, it can be hell.
Mm-hmm.
You know? But then like you said before, the illusion just goes away and you see what it is. And we don't say the C word here. We call it the heebie-jeebies. But I'm gonna tell you, when all the stuff that happened with the heebie-jeebies and people trying to get the heebie-jeebies sauce, if you know what I mean, this made it even more apparent of the fear of losing control of people in their free minds.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, man.
What I had a kind of going back. What are some of your? We're gonna talk music right now. Now we get off the heavy tip. We already done that. What are some of your favorite? What are your favorite? Some of your favorite rock bands all time?
Oh man, I'd say my favorite of all time has got to be Fugazi by far. Fugazi is probably my favorite band of all time.
That's right.
I love Lungfish too. You know, other Discord record band from Baltimore. Love Lungfish. Love Fugazi. As I've grown older, those have probably grown into two of my favorite bands. You know, I mean, as far as like, you know, I mean, I listen to all sorts of stuff, and you know, as far as like metal goes and thrash metal, I think my favorite. I love Slayer, but I think my favorite is probably Anthrax, man, because Anthrax was aware and like thinking about things and talking about things. As I've gotten older, I've really come to like them a lot more. Let me think. Well, I mean, you know, favorite bands is tough for me. I love music, and I love all kinds of music. You know, right before we started this, I drove out to pick up some food, and I put on this playlist that I have, and man, it starts with like a Grateful Dead song, then it's got Lungfish, then it's got The Clash, then I think it goes into Nation of Ulysses, then I think it's Sonic Youth, and then it's like the Rolling Stones, and then it's like, I mean, I'm just all over the place, and it all depends what's speaking to me at the moment. But the band that consistently speaks to me the most is Fugazi, for sure.
Fugazi,
for sure.
Yeah. It's interesting, man, because I didn't really. The music was what drove me to hardcore and punk, you know, and just all the energy behind it, and you know. But it's real interesting because you know, the more I started becoming aware, and the more I used to listen to Bad Brains, it was like that was like the biggest connection. That Bad Brains was like the biggest connection for me with the, the lyrics with that type of music. But me personally, like Bob Marley was that was the music. It's not like Public Enemy, but specifically Bob Marley. When I used to live in his lyrics, at the same time I'm talking about smoking weed all the time and reading books, I used to just sit back, man. I used to smoke. I used to listen to Bob Marley, man, and stuff he was saying. I was just like, yo, this is how I feel. This is the way I look at life. You know what I mean? He was a huge influence. I think we even talked about this before, but one of my three biggest musical artist influences: Bob Marley, Bono from U2, and Chuck D. Those were some of my biggest musical influences. Um, all of them were groundbreaking. All of them were progressive. You know what I'm saying? All of them were real. You know what I'm saying? And they were big time influence on me.
Yeah, man, those are all big ones. I mean, Chuck D was very influential on me. I remember, I think the novel that I'm working on right now, I think has this scene take place in there's a variation on the scene. But like I said, when I was in middle school, I was hanging out with a lot of racist kids, and I wound up in rehab, and I was kind of wondering about all of this stuff, and when I was sitting in rehab, I remember suddenly I was going to bed one night and like locked up in rehab and thinking about different things. And I remember the thing that came to my mind was the video for "Welcome to the Terror Dome" by Public Enemy, right? And it was suddenly I was like, man, like I don't know where this. It was like the universe was speaking to me, because at that moment I was like, right, like I've been trying to rebel against things, but the way I'm rebelling is not the real rebellion. Like Chuck D is talking about something real here. He's talking about a real rebellion in my mind, like, and that was just life changing to me, and changed my whole view on things, and was a big part of what got me clean at that point in time, and just changed the way that I wanted to interact with the world entirely. And Bob Marley's another one who's just out of this world amazing, man. I mean, no doubt, I'm not the first person to say that by any stretch of the imagination, but I've been listening to a lot of Bob Marley lately. Actually, he's been really speaking to me with this. I think it's with the pandemic. Like his worldview is really, sorry to say that, but with his worldview is really speaking to me with the way people are behaving right now, the way the world is right now. Like, just this kind of like, yeah, man, like things got to change, and it's got to be done. It's got to be done. It's constant. It's a constant struggle. It's going on and it's happening.
I personally kind of like we were talking about how we both went through our personal hell back in the day. I'm actually very optimistic, um, very optimistic about the future because just me being knowing what I know tragically, and coming to the age of Aquarius and at the time age of awakening, I see humanity going to a newer level. You know what I mean? Golden age as opposed to the dark ages. And I'm very optimistic about the way humanity is going right now. You know what I mean? I think my last podcast, I was just telling was a bunch of brothers and sisters, the melanated brothers and sisters that were doing a project together, and I was just telling them, that for us as melanated being black folks, if we want to call it, you know, the worst is behind us. We caught hell for 400 years plus, whatever the case may be, but you know, there's no more now excuse of anything, holding you back. It's only you holding yourself back and making things in this world. You know what I mean? You want to live right, you want to eat right. There's plenty of teachers out there to teach you how to. You want to learn about money? There's plenty of people to teach you. You know what I'm saying? And now it's about self-development. And I think that this age of Aquarius and this new age is getting everybody, at the point in which, they're starting to evolve, and start to reach the full potential of being a human being. You know what I mean? So I'm very optimistic about the way this is going. But I think the powers of the art.
I agree with you on that for sure. I think there could be a lot of good that comes out of where we're at today, and that's what I really try to focus on, is what is the world we want to build, not what's the world that we have right now, but what's the world that we want to build and how we want that world to be, and that's what I focus on with my kids, and and everything. My friends, my family, everybody's like, how do I want this world to be, and what do I need to do to make it more that way? And that to me is kind of like the peaceful revolution in some ways, like that's the deal, and that's what I want. And to get back to where we started this conversation too, man, that's what, when I talk about what I was writing about in Broken Chains of Segregation and BCS, that's what I believed back then, and that's what I was trying to do back then, And then I got away from it for a long time. Like I just got engulfed with like darkness and hatred, and things have turned around since then, and I see the world like I did back then again, and it's a beautiful thing. It's a really beautiful thing.
Yeah, man. I specifically, and I want to have this on record, because I had such a very diverse life to this point. You know, it had a bunch of different experiences. I specifically, and also if if you read my book, you'll see how diverse it is. Just dealing with people and experiences. So this is how I want this to and this is how this podcast I want to reflect that part of me. You know what I'm saying? I would be disingenuous if I didn't have people like you on here. You know what I'm saying? Just because of the way you look. I mean, it's just like, okay, now we're getting back to now we're going back to the whole thing of just being ignorant. You know what I mean? I live this experience. Look at people. I feel their energy, and I look at them that way. I don't look at their spacesuit, their avatar. If you're a good person, then so be it. That's where we're at. Let's make this place make this place better. But at the same time, this knowledge and information that I've built, that I've acquired, I have to, as a responsibility, to share this and elevate others. On any topic that I am knowledgeable on, and if I don't have information, I'll get somebody smarter than me with more knowledge, and we'll talk about that as well. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the Polka Dot Robert podcast is all about, man. And if y'all watching this, please share this. Like I said, please like that subscribe button. You know what I'm saying? We're trying to take this to a new level with this podcast. We're really trying to reach people. And please, as you can see on the screen, MichaelAnthonyAdamsJr.com. Go to this man's page, his website, buy his books. I'm gonna tell you, I read. I found myself, like I was telling earlier. I don't know. I think we were off camera, but I read his book in different parts because I'd walk by and I said, "Let me read this man's book." He read my. I gotta. He gave me show me love on this book. I gotta, read this thing. So I pick it up, and I be looking at it. And next thing I know, it's like 20 minutes later, I'm finished the chapter, and I put it down. I was like, dang, I don't know that about Mike. You know what I'm saying? So I can't come in that book. That's the way I read that book. He told me that's the best way to read it. And I can see that, especially from that was my personal experience. I know I haven't read all your books besides Disorder. Y'all definitely get that in all the rest of his books because Mike is an excellent writer. He's a great person. He's a real person. He's honest. You know what I'm saying? He's beating his demons like we all have. And look, he's here to talk about it. I applaud you for that, my man. I applaud you for you, man. Nothing but love for you and the family. Is there anything else that you want to give to the folks?
No, man, I'm good, man. This was a great conversation. Thanks so much for having me on, man. This was really a pleasure to be a part of and to help you build your thing as well, and share these messages with people and just make it all bigger. That's the goal.
You got to lift each other up, man. We got to take humanity in direction because we have been in the dark ages a long time in many ways. So that's it for me. My outro is go to www.yourbrozo.com and let me go ahead and put this on here. definitely pick this book because a lot of the conversations Mike and I had on there, it talks about in the book. She talk about when we talk about how he influenced me. Well, from how he influenced me. Him, himself, and his band influenced me to start the music. Um, and you know, check that out. A lot of stuff we talked about today is actually in the book, even our philosophies in a lot of ways. And just traveling the world and our life experiences. Follow me, subscribe, and follow Mike too here. Besides that, that's all I got, bro. So we'll talk soon. And it was a pleasure having you on. And much love to the family, like I said. And peace, bro.
Later, man. Thank you so much, and love to your family as well.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. All right, y'all. We're gonna catch y'all next time. I actually have another podcast about the same time tomorrow with a guy that brother DJ Green. He deals with the heart and the energies in the heart. He had some breakdown stuff that I didn't know the heart was that deep, man. So tomorrow, tune in at the same time, 8 o'clock. We're gonna have a real heavy conversation about how important the heart is. Love y'all, everybody. Peace and love. Yo, Brozo out. Peace.